Our last speaker of the morning, before we get everybody to a delicious fajita buffet, is going to be Ted Logan, who is the director of the American Developmental Model for the PGA of America. Ted's going to chat with us a little bit about ADM and Pga Coach. So let's give Ted a big round of applause for my neighbor before.
So rule one, let's get to a fajita lunch sooner than later. When presenting before lunch, I think I have 30 minutes, but we can do this in 20, because I know everybody's hungry. So my title is Director of American Development Model. What the heck does that mean? We'll get to that in a second. But essentially, I work in coaching and player development with the PGA of America, reporting into 3 coaching committees. So we have a youth development committee, an adult development committee, and then a teaching and coaching committee, oddly enough, chaired by Derek. My boss is going to be in the crowd today. Slightly closer, and I'll try and do my best. So 3 things I wanted to talk about today, or maybe they're all one and one. I think we updated this into PowerPoint for Google Slides. Hopefully it works, because Google Slides wasn't cooperating. But first thing, American Development Model. What the heck is that? Where is it coming from? I want to speak to that as helping guide sort of not only coaching and player development at PGA America, but really overall in sport in the U.S. I want to talk about some PGA digital resources that are available to you. And then thirdly, and really most importantly, is solicit feedback and ask for your leadership. So you're all top coaches in the game, and really we're the PGA of America. We need to listen to you and take any feedback. Quick little note about myself. I'm told I do have an accent. I thought I got rid of it, but some people can find it sometimes. I'm a marketing project management guy by trade. I worked for RBC, which is a big bank in Canada, for many years. And I was marketing wealth management and insurance. It sucked, if I can say that, but RBC started to get into sponsoring golf. So they sponsored a couple tour events, they sponsored DJ and Jason Day and Brooke Henderson and a whole bunch of players. I said, hey, I love golf, let me go do that. So I started working on that side of the business. Golf Canada at the time was developing something that they call long-term athlete development. And they were launching some programs up there, so they said, hey, can you come help us? I said, yes, totally. Worked for them for several years in their player development department, and then would talk a lot to the PGA of America. They kept saying, hey, what are you guys doing up there? And finally I just said, why don't I just come down there and help you? It's slightly warmer in Jupiter than it is in Toronto. So I've consulted with the PGA of America for several years. So American Development Model, basically in 2016, you're probably all aware, golf became part of the Olympics, rah rah. Golf became the 51st sport that's part of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. So when we joined the Olympics, there were sort of all these hoops that we had to jump through. What are the rules of your sport? Who are the referees? How would you select Olympians? What are they going to wear? All of that type of stuff. But they're also really concerned with participation. So they said, not only do you select these Olympians, we're going to go to the Olympics, we're going to win gold, which, congrats if you get double gold medal winner. But you're going to start this thing called the American Development Model, and we're going to give you a whole bunch of things that you need to do as the sport of golf, but also these 50 other sports also need to do. And why are they concerned with that? So basically, if you're the Olympic Committee, you want to win a bunch of gold medals, and let's pick on badminton, if 1 in a million Americans is going to win the gold medal in badminton, and you only have 300,000 players, that's an issue. So the USOPC started to look at all of their sports and say, we need as many as possible, as long as possible, with the best experience possible in sport, and that's not currently happening. So there's sort of why, there's a societal why, so hopefully you can see that, but essentially they've got some pressure on them from the President's Fitness Council and a number of other congressional types who are basically saying, hey, we have an obesity problem in this country. sport could be a solve for that and save us billions of dollars, and we need to get better just for our kids and our own society. So there's sort of that hierarchical why. Then back to sport participation. This is a tweet from the SFIA, Sport Fitness Industry Association, that they sent in 2017. So basically every 5 years, they do a full report on sport participation. They tweeted this out, and it's basically like, hey, soccer, baseball, basketball, football, in my mind, those would sort of be the core 4 American sports, are all declining, and really you can extrapolate that out across most of the 51. But they recognize hockey. They're like, hey, what's hockey doing? Since 2011, they went and asked, and they said, oh, we started this thing called ADM, which the US Olympic Committee then said, yeah, we should probably do that with everybody. And really, they'll come out with a new report this year. It'll be a bit of a mess because of COVID. Obviously, golf and tennis will be way up. Hockey will be way down because nobody wanted to sit on a bench for a year. So it'll be a little bit skewed. But really, if you look at sport participation over the last 20 to 30 years, it's dropped significantly. And you gotta wonder why. Let's see if this. I don't break anything here. Okay. Well, that was, if you, I had a funny video. If you YouTube Kid Goes Beast Mode, and it's essentially a kid playing rugby who's twice the size of every other kid, just mowing them down, and a whole bunch of parents, screaming in shock and horror. But essentially what it was trying to show was, hey, what's everybody's experience in sports? So why, if we look at 51 sports, why are we declining in participation? And the point of the video was essentially, what's the experience? So if you're one of those kids playing rugby and you're playing on Beast Mode's team, like basically it just showed the kids handing Beast Mode the ball and he was just plowing over all the other kids. So the kids on his team were not learning to run, throw, they weren't touching the ball. They're like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And then if you're on the other team, you were just getting bowled over. So the experience wasn't amazing. So if you think of all of our sports, what are those experiences and can we improve on them? So US Olympic Committee comes up along and says, hey, here's your criteria. First criteria is your sport in? Yes. We obviously said yes. There's 51 sports. All of them have said yes. We were very quick to, some sports aren't as lucky to have sort of, USA Archery as an example is a guy in Colorado Springs in his basement. So he doesn't quite have the horsepower that golf or tennis or some of these other big sports do. But when we said yes, we do it collectively with a sort of, we don't just have a USA Hockey or a USA Soccer. We have a number of different associations who all band together as sort of pieces of the game, but with the PGA of America leading it in this case. The second thing they said was create some sport-specific guidelines. And you heard Jim talk about it earlier. Sleep is important. The mental side is important. It isn't just like grip, stand, swing. That's kind of 20% of the whole athlete. But what are the athletic skills? What's the mental side, the psychological side, the social side? What are the parameters on practicing? What are the parameters on playing? And it differs whether you're 6 years old, 16 years old, or 60 years old, right? So it's all going to be a little different. So they gave each sport, including us, a bunch of sports scientists, to kind of take an outside look and say, hey, here's the parameters that might fit for your sport. And we created a document, we overlaid it onto, as an example for the PGA, onto a bunch of programs. Some of you might run junior league. And when we sort of overlaid this document, we said, oh, well, it's for 9 to 13-year-olds, but what if you're 14 in junior league? What if you're 9? What if you're 8? So we sort of said we need to expand this program. And we also looked at the parameters of the tee boxes. So within our sport guidelines, they said, here's some general yardages for 9-year-old girls. And we were way off because in junior league we had everybody teeing off when it started in the same spot. So a 9-year-old girl, you were never using a drive, you were using the 13-year-old boy. So we said, we got to change that. We split the tees. If you're running, you might remember that. Now the girls' participation is way up. We have all girls teams playing and moving on to postseason. So it's not really rocket science. It was just sort of a simple, we probably should have noticed that. The third requirement, though, is coach training. So we sort of created this document. If you're like me, certainly my kids only wants to read a 58-page kind of scientific document. And we're also not naive to say, hey, we can update some national programs. We know the difference is made with the coaches at the grassroots level. So the third requirement was to create a coach training. So we created Pga Coach. There's a 3-hour ADM training on there. It's free for all of you. We've had over 4,000 coaches go through it from the PGA of America, some LPGA coaches. I think there's about 100 in South Texas, Scott, if I'm not mistaken. When I hear sort of online coach, when I hear online training, I go, I hate that. I got a ticket recently, a speeding ticket, and I had to go through this horrendous sort of online training. So we took our document and we basically gave it to a production company and said, take this, but don't make it like horrific online training. So it's entertaining, it's interactive. There's videos, it's well done. I'm obviously biased, but so would encourage you, if you haven't done it, check it out. Maybe if on a whole day coming up. The fourth requirement from them was fundamental movement skills. So essentially the genesis of ADM or long-term athlete development was, hey, you're probably all amazing at grip, stance, and swing, or whatever your key sport criteria are of your 51 sports, but are you making sure your coaches and within all of your programs, you're talking about running, jumping, hopping, throwing, striking. We know that is going to create a better athlete. When you're a better athlete, you're not only going to be better at your own sport, but also other sports. So they're challenging these sports to say, hey, how are you focused on the full athlete, and how are you infusing that into your programming? We developed a Pga Coach App, which if anyone has it, it has, because then you say, well, how do I do that? There's 150 or more different types of activities that take these types of things and help you kind of come up with ideas on how you, once you watch the training, you can't really argue with it. You say, yeah, that makes sense, but how do I implement this at my club? So there's a number of different ideas in the Pga Coach App. The fifth requirement of really where they want to go for all sport is evaluation tools. We're not quite there yet, but it's a progress report, evaluation tools, whatever you want to call it. They're basically saying, hey, sport, if my daughter wants to go to Harvard one day, we know she's going to have to go from first grade to 12th grade. There's going to be math and science and history and geography, and there's some general sort of parameters and benchmarks. I think if you ask anyone in sport, we don't really have that. Not to say there's going to be an exact science to it or a right or wrong, but just some general parameters of if you're 6'16" or 60, what experience are you looking for? And then what's going to help you get there? What's going to help the coach get the consumer there? And then some clarity on the consumer to say, okay, how am I going to need to get there? I think you heard Jim say what's the first thing he does? Just ask them. What do they want? Where do they want to go? And then let's help them get there and then be clear with them. So we have an assessment tool. We're not quite there yet. We need to help build that out, but that's something we're hoping to create along with those basically, if you're the USOPC, you're sitting there and saying, okay, by 2024, we want to have an army of 51 sports, all who are concerned with getting as many as possible, as long as possible, with the best experience possible. And each of those 51 sports, their last requirement is, once you have these aligned programs, these trained coaches, how are you talking about them? Like, how does the consumer know where to go, what to do, how are you getting the word out there? And I think that's where the PGA of America can help the most is, right now, if everybody goes to the Google for whatever you want, they're searching for golf lessons near me or golf coaches near me. I bet if you were to do that from your home club or wherever you are, there's obviously going to be some paid ads, there might be a mapping, but Pga.com will always come up, and that's based on, so sort of, if you do that right now or wherever your home club is, Pga.com will be the first after those paid ads, and that's just because of a domain authority. So there's 500,000 users a month, 1 million page views, and basically a domain authority is advanced analytical algorithm. So, sorry, automated analytical algorithm. So basically, it's Google saying, who has what site is the smartest for golf? Who are we comfortable with when somebody searches to send them to? And that's obviously, if Google gives you a good search, you're happy, you go back to Google again. So basically, a 40 to 50 domain authority is good. Average of 50 to 60 is pretty good. Anything over 60 is excellent. So we have a domain authority of 76. A lot of that is because people are looking for, who's leading the PGA Tour event. A lot of the times that goes right to us, and we have a leaderboard on that site. One thing we've done is for our coaches who've taken the ADM training and created a profile, is to put them right at the leaderboard. So this is the leaderboard. You can see Stricker, Speed, and then Scott Miracle. So you've got 1 million people a month checking the leaderboard or more during the PGA Championship or the Ryder Cup. Some of them might say, oh, who's my coach? I want to meet a coach. So that's how we're sort of taking that market and identify the good and hopefully bringing it to life. How do you get your name up there? There's, again, on Pga Coach, you take your ADM training. There's some training on how to create a profile. It takes 10 or 12 minutes to create that. So then when someone is on the Google and searching or looking at that previous screen, your name can come up there if you're looking for new business. And then what happens, so if they say, oh, I want to meet my coach, they then click a button and you basically get a lead. And there's some training on Pga Coach of what do I do with all these leads. I know we've had some coaches say, obviously we're all insanely busy right now, I have too many leads. So there's training on how to convert them, how to retain them. If you've got too many, maybe you want to go to group coaching or raise your rates. Or there's all sort of training embedded in that for us to market and identify the good or amazing professionals. Some of that training is just around stop selling your time and start selling results. So a little bit back to what Jim was saying again. Okay, what do they actually want? Have you listened to your consumer, and then are you providing them with? We're not teaching them all like tour pros, and we've done some research on .com, the mindsets. We had an agency help us with who's visiting our site and what are they actually looking for, and they broke it down into sort of these three. But a win sort of performance focus, which I think we're amazing at teaching, coaching. We've always talked to that type of mindset. They realize that's about 10% out of that 1 million people. And I'm sure if you think about it at your own club, right? Like who's a top amazing golfer that you can coach like that? It might be 10% of the actual golfers. Socialize in the middle was about 80%. So I'm playing in my scrambles and playing with my buddies, playing with my family, and I'm just getting out there. Doesn't mean you're not a good golfer, but it could mean, I don't want to whiff it on the first tee. I want to do wedges and whiskeys. I want to, whatever that is. So that's about 80% the market, and we realized on PGA.com we were really talking to that 10% and not enough to that 80%. So again, it's probably going to Google saying, I've got my corporate attorney, I don't want to embarrass myself, how do I need a coach? And then last part, which is, this is really a growing segment, but just that sort of mindfulness or escape, okay? I'm going to get out there, I don't care what I shoot, I may not be good, but I'm out in nature, my phone's in the car, and I'm just sort of, I'm in a zenful mind. So I tried to put, I read an article the other day in the Wall Street Journal, I forget the percentage, but it was basically saying the amount of people who started a side hustle during COVID is off the charts, like 30% of people or something. So that means, one in three of us might be side hustling. As I'm reading it, my wife the next day is like, she's a teacher, but she's like, I'm selling wine online. It's like this no hangover wine, she's starting a side hustle. I'm like, okay, well if you were to say, okay, I need a little side hustle related to a coach profile on PGA.com, the average price of converting a lead that we've got for our coaches is $855. So, okay, someone found me on PGA.com, they've come in and I've sold them into my introductory program or whatever that is $855. Currently, we've sent over 18,000 leads to coaches, which that number is only going to grow exponentially. So right now, it's about 450 leads per week that we send to coaches. Before the summer, when we just launched this, it was about 250, and we just expect that to continue to grow and grow. If you were to convert 3 of those, if you wanted to make $2,500, and we'd convert 3 of those. So that's some simple Canadian math. And, hey, I need $2,500 to go to Cancun this winter. How am I going to do that? That's one option of potentially getting there, or really just to showcase potential revenue to your business. And then the last piece, I'll get to, actually before I do that, I believe, has anyone here created a profile and received leads? Anyone care to share? I guess A, was the training horrible or was it decent? Was it easy or hard to create a profile? And then, maybe just share your experience, A, for the group, and B, for my own edification if we need to get better. Derek, you're not allowed. Yes?
Training was super easy, did it in about 1 day. I did it during COVID. I was trying to find a way to boost my lessons and didn't really think a lot about it. And then give it about 3 months, I converted about 15 lessons out of it. So it turned out really good.
Awesome. Anyone else? Converted a lead? I guess creating a profile, it's like a Facebook page, right? It shouldn't be more than
it was super easy.
Yeah. And the training, so the training's free. It takes about 3 hours, but it sort of tracks where you are. You can log in, log out. You can do your jammies at night if you got 20 minutes. You can. So it's not sort of, I got to sit down and dedicate 3 hours because nobody has that. You can do it in 10-minute segments. The profile takes about 15 minutes, and then obviously the lead converting, we just want to continue to get better and better than that with potential calendaring functions that the coach or the consumer can find where you are, right? Because I think in this day and age, the consumer wants one click to be done with, right? I know where I need to be, what I need to do, and how to find you.
I was just going to say, during commercials, during the PGA, Ryder Cup, Masters, that's when I noticed a pretty good uptick in the number of leads that I was sent. And I turned quite a few, not just one lesson, but it turned into a lot of future lessons too.
Right.
So it's been really good.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really the key, and bias, but the key is obviously still the coach, right? People want that relationship with you to sort of be brought along in their journey. This is just, hopefully an on-ramp for those golfers who maybe don't know. I mean, there's a lot of latent demand if I don't know where to go, who to talk to. Golf can can be intimidating for those of us not in the room, and this is one avenue to hopefully help them. And then the last thing I'll just end with, so sort of back to that first Olympic Committee requirement was everybody's going to engage together in golf. So PGA America, that's how we deem that we'll market and identify. But there's also 4 other groups. So we've sort of said, hey, we've created training for our coaches. We've opened it up to LPGA coaches. There is a 30-minute industry ADM training, so the full training is available to PGA and LPGA members. But if you wanted a GM to go through it or an owner, there's a 30-minute industry training. But we've now gone back to this group and said, hey, we need to uphold this. This is what we're doing for our coaches. And this group has committed to, okay, there's something called Make Golf Your Thing. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. The industry started like a campaign in April around how to make golf your thing, how do we bring in new people, how do we diversify the game. So there was a lot of marketing around it, but there wasn't a lot of conversion. So basically you would go to Make Golf Your Thing and say, I want to make golf my thing, what do I do? There wasn't a lot on there. So they kind of said, hey, how do we add in on Make Golf Your Thing all of these coaches who can help people make golf their thing and all of their programs and all of their, so basically by a PGA show, we're basically looking to create an Airbnb for golf. So if you have a coach profile or if you're running junior league or whatever the program might be, you would just be funneled into this. It would geo-read where the heck you are, and it would spit out all of the different programs for that consumer. And each of these groups have said, yes, we'll put it on our website, we'll put it on the tour broadcasts, and so hopefully, by this Augusta, when they're saying, go to Make Golf Your Thing, all of these coach profiles aren't just on PGA.com, which gets 1 million views a month. They're on the weekend broadcast, they're on, obviously, we'll have them on PGA Champ and Ryder Cup, but every other weekend, we want to be promoting that as an avenue to get into the game. So, I'll close with that, and I would just say we're sort of, we're at mile 1 of 100, I think, of where we want to go for coaches. Derek, hopefully you back me up on that, but there's just such a focus on how, if we're going to get as many as possible, as long as possible, with the best experience possible, we, the PGA of America, truly believe that it's through an amazing coach. So we're going to continue to push all of this and also hopefully, provide more tools. So to those who are using it, and if it stinks, you don't like it, if you've got ideas, I would love to hear them, but we've got a dedicated tech crew and a lot of different partners who can help us make it happen. So we are 1 minute ahead of schedule. So any questions before we go Pga crazy?
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you get any feedback from limiting who can advance to the next level in the PGA Junior League? You have an age limit, not a skill limit. Did you get any feedback on that?
An avalanche of feedback. I would say, so it really was based on sort of ADM saying, okay, is it the right thing to do to send 8-year-olds to this national championship and put them on ESPN? And I think that where we missed the boat was it was a surprise to a lot of the coaches who were running it, and then it was a surprise to the parents, and so we totally whiffed on that. But I would say the feedback around sort of, my 8-year-old's good enough, or they're going to play in the U.S. Open qualifier. I think we started to go blue in the face arguing about like childhood development, and so I think where this group would stand is that's fine. If you have a 9-year-old that wants to play in any of that type of event, great, go for it. But I think what this group stands is not that. Like, we take our sort of role in childhood development seriously and just wait another year. So I think got into a lot. And I'm not the sports scientist, so then I was bringing sports scientists in with these parents and arguing back and forth. And I think we ultimately just said, hey, look, we didn't do a great job on sort of being upfront as we could on the age limit. That caused a lot of angst for a lot of our coaches, which is the last thing we want to do. But from a sort of what we stand for perspective, I think we're always going to just err to the side of caution, just based on everything that you saw coming out of this year's Olympics was great, but there was also a lot of Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and all those types of that we're seeing more on the burnout and the mental side. And so I don't know if that answered your. Yes, we got a lot of feedback. We're sorry it went down the way it did, but I think we'll continue to sort of stand on this is what we stand for, and these are the programs that we'll put your logo on. And speaking of logos, actually, you go through that training, I didn't realize, I should have, the marketing guy. You can use, like, once you're through that training, there's an ADM logo with the Olympic rings, which is a bigger deal than I thought it was. I've seen coaches, it's on shirts, it's on their golf bags, it's on their websites. So that's one thing that I know has resonated with a lot of coaches, their programs, and certainly parents. Anything else?
Tell that just kind of contact.
Oh, yes, sir. Call me if it's good. If you don't like anything, then Derek Cooper's your guy. Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.